talking to Dr. Karen Phillip, one of our regulars. Karen is a psychotherapist, family counsellor and clinical hypnotherapist. And she's going to tell us about some of those things that we have to do with spreading ourselves too thin at Christmas. And if you want to have a chat with Karen, if you're finding it a bit tough, if you think you need a bit of a helping hand, well, now is the time to do it. 131873. It's 131873. Or you can email us via 2gb.com or 4bc.com.au. Although I think with Karen, it's obviously a lot better to be on the phone. 131873. Dr. Karen Phillip, how are you?
Good, thank you, Warren. How are you tonight? And hello to all the listeners.
And likewise, I'm very well. I hope you're well, as you've been saying. And look, you've got a little bit of a gift to some of our callers tonight. You've got a book, do you?
Yes. I thought, what an opportune time for the relationship book. It is titled OMG, We're Getting Married, but it's basically a book for anybody that's new to their relationship, that has been in their relationship for a little while. And what's interesting is that about 50% of the sales of this book have gone to the parents of the children in a relationship. So we didn't really expect that. We expected more of the younger people to purchase it, those that are planning to start their committed relationship together.
Yep.
And while, you know, a lot of them have purchased, a lot of the parents are purchasing it for their kids.
Well, I mean, it is important to know what you're getting yourself into, I suppose, with a new relationship, be it a wedding or otherwise.
Well, it is, and so many of the same problems come across the counselling room after just a couple of years within the marriage or the relationship. Things such as the career, who takes precedence if children come along and when children come along, the division of household tasks, dealing with the in-laws and the other family, all sorts of things, you know, where they're going to live and you know, there's just so many things when you marry somebody that do come into play and enter the relationship. And if you haven't been in a real committed relationship before, let alone a marriage, these things are all very new. And unfortunately, our divorce rate after about 6 years, things start to fall apart. So I'm trying everything we can to try and prevent that and give people some information. A lot about communication, how to remove any conflict from your communication and language. And, you know, and when people learn this, they can usually last in their relationship a lot happier. Yeah,
indeed. 131873 is the number for Dr. Karen Phillip. Now, we're also going to talk, I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about, people getting together at Christmas. It's probably a little early to do that. We might do that next week or and so forth. But the problems of the pressure of getting ready for Christmas, I think we all feel it, don't we? The expectation of all those things that have to be done and really wearing yourself too thin.
Oh, look, that's exactly right, Warren. We've had a full year. We've worked all year. We're usually working a little bit extra, getting things ready for Christmas, even in our workplace, because most of us shut down for a little while. And then we've maxed out our credit card. We've got to think of gifts. We've got to find the time to shop. We've got to wrap them up, hide them, you know, and then we've got to prepare ourselves for visiting family during the day, sometimes multiple families, particularly if we've got mum and dad that are no longer together, that have gone off into their own extended family, if you like, and families. Then we've got the in-laws. Yeah, we've got our kids. There's an enormous amount of pressure placed on us at Christmas time.
Yeah, well, not all of us, but there's certainly some of us who get the unfair brunt of Christmas to the point where what should be a joyous time isn't enjoyable at all.
Well, it can be challenging. I mean, Christmas is an amazing time of year. It does generally bring families and friends back together. We'll receive Christmas cards or send them out to people we may not have the chance to connect with during the year, perhaps maybe a birthday wish. So it really is an amazingly good time to reconnect with people and to connect again with our family. A lot of the times they'll travel down, to see everybody that once a year.
Yeah.
It's just when we are married and we have our own children and then we have the in-laws, that's when it starts to get really difficult. And I think the biggest problem is that we as the parents, and even if we're older parents in our 50s to sort of 70s, we expect the kids to come to us or to be with us. And we sometimes really forget to think about their situation and their families. And what I normally suggest to people is to have a discussion, at least now, a couple of weeks out, and figure out who you're going to see. And it may not be Christmas Day, it may be Boxing Day or even Christmas Eve. Because Christmas is a season, it's not just a day.
Yeah, oh gee, I guess how many of us can relate to that? Well, it's true, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, there's expectations, and let's face it, families we like to think this family is this tight little unit, but the reality is, particularly when we're talking about marriages and stuff like that, there can be so many different branches you've got to try and deal with.
Oh, my goodness, absolutely. I mean, we sometimes might have breakfast at our house, and we'll have lunch at mum's and maybe dinner at dad's, and then we'll go to the in-laws the next day or whatever. Even in my family this year, because I've got a son in Melbourne and my other son has got in-laws in Bathurst. So, you know, like one day I'll have my son here with my stepkids, and then the next day my son will be here with my sister flying in from Queensland, and the following day we'll go down and visit my daughter.
Yep.
So we're going to have Christmas over 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, and I guess the problem might be expectation. That's the only issue. The people expect it to be all so new and shiny, like, particularly when your little kids are involved, as if it's, the beginning of Christmas Day. And I suppose if you're not going to get to see everybody at that beginning of Christmas Day, you have to adjust your expectations a little bit when it comes to little kids in particular.
We really do. And while we all personally want what we want, you know, we want the family together, we want them here at lunch or at dinner or at breakfast, we really need to be mindful of what it fits in for their life. And often our kids, our adult children, have been working all year very hard, you know, paying their mortgages or saving for their home, looking after the little ones. So we need to give them a bit of a break sometime rather than putting the pressure on them. It may be a time for older parents to say, you know what, guys, what suits you this year? So we normally have an odds and even year, if you like. So this is the even year, so I don't generally get Christmas Day or anything on the even year. The in-laws may get that. Next year, it usually comes back to me, but with my daughter now having a baby, so we may adjust it again next year. And this is what I think a lot of families tend to miss out on, the continual adjustment as family grows, as the children get older, as they extend their own family. So if we're mindful of all of that and we can adjust on a regular basis, as long as we see them and spend time with them and we're able to get to see them open their gifts that we shop for and plan for, then I think we really do satisfy pretty much all of our requirements.
131873 is the number. Dr. Karen Phillip, our family counsellor, our clinical psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, ready to take your calls, 131873. See, one of the things too is people think of this word tradition, and therefore, particularly, I have to be fair, it's the older generation. If they've done the same thing for years, sometimes decades, they're not willing to bend the way you're talking about.
Well, I don't know if it's not willing to bend rather than they don't know how to bend. They're not sure what they should do. They don't understand the necessity that perhaps their kids are now requiring and needing. Because life is different than it was 10, even 20 years ago. It is different. It is faster paced. We need to spread ourselves out, and we used to live fairly close together. You know, if we grew up in Hornsby, then we would live around that area.
That's right.
Now we're living much further afield or interstate, and I think this has changed a lot of family dynamics around that Christmas period as well. But you know, if we take the attitude that we're going to be Santa Claus, and no matter where we go into what household, whenever, that we can bring joy and fun and happiness, then I think we'll all be fine.
Well, you know, you're dead right about the moving factor. Well, people used to move, but the certainly phenomena that people move a lot more away from where they were born and raised it makes it a different world in 2016. It
really does. We've got so many people living abroad now with businesses that are international. We have so many people having to move wherever their work takes them, and often that is further away from the parents. And then we have parents that are maybe getting older and downsizing, selling their home, moving into another area as well. So we are slightly more disjointed than what we used to be, so to speak. And so Christmas comes along and then we have to pack up and go somewhere, and it may take hours in the car to travel to visit the rest of our family or some of our family. And if we've got family in one end of Sydney and others in the other end, and then in-laws up at Newcastle or down at Wollongong, it really becomes a bit of a bit of a stretch.
Oh, it does. And if you try, getting back to where we started with this, Karen, if you try and do it all on the one day, it just becomes unpleasant. You raised, in some ways, I think you're better off if it's too far to travel, because if you end up with a 3 or 4 hour journey and you're trying to fit everybody in, it makes it very, very tough indeed.
Oh, look, certainly. We've had Christmas lunches with members of the family that we haven't been able to see. For instance, our family I've got in Wollongong, Brisbane, and also in Melbourne. Yeah. And we've actually Skyped them, put the iPad at the table, them at their table, and we've had lunch together.
Oh, there you go. We've got Peter. We've got Peter on the line. What's your question, Peter?
G'day, Warren. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Peter.
It's a very topical question, I have to say. I'm got a bit of a conundrum.
Mm.
Okay, this year we're planning to have Christmas at my brother's house, which is about an hour and a half from where we live. And the situation is that my sister's husband, i.e. my brother-in-law, without going into too much detail, is, let's just say he's not one of the favourites, and he's been making, let's just say, some things, let's just say, very difficult and awkward and probably rather egregious requests on behalf of my parents. Now, of course, my parents are elderly, and my mum still wants everyone to be together, but I'm worried that if I go up there and he turns up, I might snot him. I'm being really serious.
No, Merry Christmas. I have to say, Peter, though, this is a side of Christmas, isn't it, really? I mean, tensions can come to the fore.
I initially said to my parents that I don't want to go because in case I just don't want the guy to be there, and I've sort of suggested that unfortunately I can't answer my sister turning up without him.
Well, look, Peter,
so
it's your family. It's your family, Peter. You should be there. And you know what? Sometimes there's members of our family that have their own types of opinions and personalities that we don't particularly like. If we know that, which you do in advance, then hopefully you'll be able to prepare yourself to go, you know what, he may be grossly annoying, but I'm going to choose to ignore the ridiculous comments that he's going to make, and I'm just going to completely ignore him and not give him the satisfaction of seeing me react. I'm going to control and I'm going to win. I'm not going to let him set the tone. I will. And we can usually manage quite well during our day when we have a difficult family member. But you're the one that needs to take control and not allow him to set the tone and the mood in you.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Because I was really concerned, and I was distinctly not wanting to go because I more of a protest, number one, but number two, but I didn't want to do that because I felt it would make my mother in particular feel awkward.
It would, but I'm sure it would make you feel dreadful as well because you've missed out on that Christmas time with your family, that celebration of our once-a-year Christmas. So, Peter, hopefully you will make the decision to go and participate in Christmas with your family and take the attitude that, you know what, I know what he's like and I'm going to choose to ignore him and not allow him to dictate how I'm going to feel. I'm going to brush it off and ignore his ridiculous comments because I know that they're ridiculous.
Okay, just hang in there, Peter. We'll get your details. Karen, I'm pretty much out of time with that, but you've got the website, drkarenphillip.com.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Warren, if people want to grab my book to give as a gift to someone, not only am I giving it out for free tonight, just postage and handling, which I think is $9 or $10, but I will also sign and dedicate the book to whoever they want it to. So if they order the book online and grab it, just drop me an email from the drkarenphillip.com site, where it is, drkarenphillip.com. They can drop me an email in the contact to say, look, I've just ordered it through this email. I want the dedication to go to these people and from me or from whoever it is. And I will package that book and I will send it out, dedicated and signed, for the listeners on 2GB tonight.
There we go. I'll talk to you next week, eh?
Great. Thanks, Warren.
Dr. Karen Phillip, and in just a moment we'll have a look at the Sunday papers.